Live from State College, Pennsylvania. Here is Geo 160 News. Starring Josie Rabare, Aubrey Taylor, and Dan Mount. Good evening. Welcome to Geo 160 News. I'm Aubrey Taylor.
And I'm Josie Rabare.
And tonight we have a very special report for you on the economic union crisis in Europe. GDP is the gross domestic product, or what the country is producing. The first image we have is an abstraction of a map of Europe. Here we see the creators making fun of the strengths, but mostly major problems of the Eurozone. For example, when we look at Spain, we can see a larger man appearing to be on vacation with the quote, "Spain, laid-off workers can potentially get 33 days of severance pay or paid vacation for every year of service." This is an example of a bad map due to confusing color scheme and lack of information. This map shows the percent of regional GDP in what we can assume is each region of each country. We can see a lot of lighter blues showing us that there is a lot of low GDP. However, because the map does not specify where the regions are, readers and viewers have a skewed representation. The biggest problem with the GDP of the Eurozone is that it is extremely uneven in distribution. This map uses circles to show how the GDP in each country has changed in the past 10 years. The bigger the circle, the more public debt the country has. As you can see, in most circles except Luxembourg, Bulgaria, Slovakia, and Belgium, where the orange circle is inside the green circle, the debt has increased. This image alone truly shows how many difficulties the EU is dealing with. The reason that GDP is creating such problems for the European Union is because if one country messes up the euro, it messes it up for the rest. In order to keep the union together, one country or a few countries must bail out the poor countries to keep them as viable members of the EU. By bailing out these countries, the loaner countries are able to save the overall European Union. But the question is, how long can they continue to do this?
So an important part of the EU financial crisis is the continuing country's debt. In this map, we can see a diverging color scheme where red and pink designate countries that are most at risk for default. And we can also see the countries who are doing better in their prime lending. Also help us see how the progression of the EU financial crisis evolved over time. We can see how it started mostly in Greece and then swept through the southern part of the European Union before finally moving up all the way north to Ireland. The percentages given indicate the amount of public debt as it's related to a country's GDP. So for example, Finland, which has 53%, of their total gross domestic product, 53% of that is going to be taken up by the public debts or the government debts that that country owes. This map is also useful because it shows credit ratings given in 2011 by Standard & Poor. Credit ratings help us determine which countries are most at risk for not being able to repay their loans. So while Portugal and France both have very similar public debts percentages as related to their GDP, France has a much easier time producing things to repay off that debt than Portugal does.
In the early mid-2000s, the Greek government took advantage of Greece's strong economy by running a large deficit. This put them in a huge debt as the years went by, causing the government to call for austerity measures. These measures are, however, worsening the economy and causing high unemployment rates in Greece. People are getting sick of it, and the reference map here depicts a demonstration scene in Athens. From the map, you can see places with major riots represented by red stars, areas of shooting represented by black star, and gray shaded areas showing areas of major damaged properties. This is a satellite image that used stars to show past protests in solidarity with the Greek uprising. As you can see, the protests occurred all over the world, but we will specifically focus on events in Europe. We can see when we zoom in on Europe, the stars become less clustered, and we are also able to see the distribution of the stars are mostly in the Eurozone. Unfortunately, the resolution is poor and we can't zoom in to see the specific locations of where each riots took place. The yellow star represents where the creators of this map predict future riots will take place. And that is all for Job 160 News. I'm Josie Rabari.
And I'm Amber Taylor. Stay classy, stay college. Bye.